Story picks up with Joel being haunted by the Smile entity after witnessing Rose's tragic death. Desperate to escape the curse, he tracks down a group of drug dealers and holds one of them at gunpoint. He forces the dealer into the house, where the man's brother watches as he stabs the dealer to death, hoping this will transfer the curse. However, things go wrong when the brother shoots at him, triggering a gunfight in which Joel kills him too. Realizing that the curse won't transfer if the witness dies, he panics. Another dealer, Lewis, sees the chaos unfold. As more of the gang arrives, he flees into the street, where he is hit by a car. His body is dragged across the pavement, leaving behind a bloody, smile-like pattern. Sky Riley is a famous pop star getting ready for an important interview. While she is very successful, her past is filled with problems like substance abuse and the pain of losing her boyfriend in a car accident. Her mother, Elizabeth, manages her career, which causes tension between them. She is also no longer close with her best friend Gemma after the accident, showing how much the tragedy has affected her life. Now, with an upcoming tour, she sees a chance to start fresh and rebuild herself. After meeting with her manager and assistant, Sky receives a message from Lewis, her drug dealer. Struggling with back pain, she decides to visit him discreetly to get Vicodin, but the situation quickly turns into a nightmare. At his apartment, he greets her in a paranoid frenzy, holding a sword to her throat and claiming he doesn't remember contacting her. He rants about being followed by a mysterious presence, teetering on the edge of madness. Moments later, he bursts from another room, screaming, before an invisible force enters his mouth. His face twists into a sinister smile as he grabs a weight plate and gruesomely smashes his own face, leaving his jaw mangled. Horrified, Sky vomits but hesitates to call 911, fearing the legal trouble of being found at a drug dealer's home. She's left shaken, trapped between the terror she's witnessed and the consequences of seeking help. Sky pushes through preparations for her tour, though the trauma of her recent experiences still haunts her. During a meet and greet, a fan named Alfredo gets too close, grabbing her and telling her he wants to take her skin. Security quickly intervenes, but she remains rattled. After a brief moment to collect herself, she continues the event, only to be scared by a young girl who gives her a disturbing smile. Soon after, she receives an anonymous message asking if she had been at Lewis's house, heightening her growing sense of dread. Back at her apartment, Sky hears a strange noise and goes to investigate. She finds a t-shirt she signed for Alfredo, followed by what looks like his clothes scattered across the floor. The unease grows as she notices a figure resembling him, naked, standing at the end of a dark hallway. Without warning, he charges at her, and Sky sprints to the door in panic. When she opens it, she's relieved to find Gemma, whom she had earlier called in an attempt to make amends. Shaken, Sky tells her about the horrifying incident with Lewis, and she agrees to stay the night. As they try to sleep, Sky confesses to feeling a deep darkness within herself, even before the car accident. Her friend responds coldly, saying it's because she is a horrible person. Sky then sees the entity take the form of Gemma, smiling menacingly before letting out a sharp honking noise like a car horn. She wakes up in the morning to find Gemma calmly making breakfast, leaving her unsure of what was real. While rehearsing with her dancers for the tour, Sky is distracted by a sudden flash of Paul's image, causing her to fall. Frustrated and embarrassed, she angrily accuses one of the dancers of throwing her off balance. She returns to her room to find it trashed, and immediately blames Jonathan. However, Elizabeth points out that Joshua was with her all day, making her accusation impossible. This realization forces her to confront how paranoid and unstable she is beginning to appear. Later, she reluctantly attends a charity event at Darius's invitation, where she's asked to speak. While reading from the teleprompter, it stalls, and she improvises a speech that quickly devolves into a rant about her personal struggles. As the teleprompter starts working again, it forces her to read Paul's name aloud, triggering a shocking vision. Sky sees him smiling and walking toward her, sending her into a panic. She desperately yells at the hallucination to stop smiling, only to snap back to reality. Just as an older woman approaches to offer help, a bloodied version of Paul reappears, grabbing her. In her panic, she shoves the woman off the stage, sending her crashing onto a table in front of the horrified crowd. Overcome with fear, she flees the stage, leaving chaos in her wake. At home, she receives more messages from the unknown number, claiming to know who she is and what she's been seeing. They send her a video from Lewis's phone where he talks about encountering the entity. The sender then invites her to meet them at a public location, leaving her both scared and intrigued. She goes to a bar where she meets Morris, the person behind the mysterious messages. He tells her his brother was a victim of the entity, which forced him to tear his own jaw off with a crowbar. Morris explains he's been tracking the entity's pattern and found Lewis's body, getting Sky's number from his phone. He proposes a drastic plan. As a nurse, he could stop her heart temporarily to prevent the entity from claiming her. Sky rejects the idea and storms off, only to be surrounded by fans who recognize her. Thither, she tries to unwind at home alone, but soon the entity appears, taking the form of her backup dancers, all grinning at her. They begin to chase her around the apartment, cornering her before attacking. One of them seemingly sticks their arm down her throat, and she blacks out from the terror. A flashback reveals the couple on the night of the accident. After Paul calls her a psycho, she grabs the wheel in anger, causing the car to crash. She survives with severe injuries, but when she regains consciousness, he is already dead. She can only wail in despair. She wakes up in the hospital after being found unconscious in her apartment. Elizabeth is by her side, but when she asks to cancel the tour due to her condition, Elizabeth argues that it would ruin her career and lead to a lawsuit. Sky angrily responds that Elizabeth only cares about money. Suddenly, the entity appears in the form of Elizabeth. She punches the mirror and begins stabbing herself, even gouging out her own eye. Panicked, Sky runs to the door, only to realize she's holding the glass shard and covered in blood. She sees what looks like her mother's dead body and hesitates when Joshua tries to enter. She attempts to escape, but when Joshua notices the blood, doctors and guards rush in. Sky grabs a guard's gun and flees the hospital. On the streets, Sky runs into Gemma and forces her driver at gunpoint to give up the car so she can find Morris. Gemma insists on coming with her, but as they drive, she receives a call from the real Gemma. It turns out the entity has been posing as her all along. Realizing the truth, she takes control of the car and successfully escapes. Sky meets Morris at an abandoned Pizza Hut, where they head into the freezer to stop the damage to her brain. As the process begins, Morris steps out, and the entity appears, taking the form of Sky from the night of the accident. It attacks, but she manages to bite off its thumbs and grabs a syringe meant to sedate her. Despite her efforts, the entity isn't stopped and locks her in the freezer. Sky finds herself on stage at the first show of her tour, with Elizabeth, Joshua, Darius, and hundreds of fans in the crowd. As she performs, the entity emerges from a shell of her own body, revealing its monstrous face and towering form before crawling into her mouth. She collapses in front of the audience, but then rises, smiling eerily. In a horrific display, she begins to bash her head with the microphone, driving it through her eye, all while her terrified fans look on, powerless to stop her.